if you're like me, then you love automating things in Minecraft. So today, I'm going to be showing you how to use probably one of the best mods in current versions, called the Create mod. Now, the Create mod lets you do so many things, like making elevators like this one here, trains, automating certain items, and so much more. So I could automate iron, I can make an elevator like this, I could make a monorail even. There's so much you can do with the Create mod. So today, I'm going to be showing you the basics and teaching you some of the misunderstood concepts of Create. So, everything starts by getting iron and andesite. These are the two basic materials you'll need. And if you grab yourself a crafting table, you can see that I need to put 2 iron nuggets and 2 andesite in here to make 1 andesite alloy. You can then take this andesite alloy and you can hold it in your hand and right click on a stripped log. It has to be a stripped log. It will not work on a regular log. And as you can see, doing that, I'll get andesite casing. Andesite casing is used to make all of the machines, but not basic things like shafts and cogwheels that are used for moving energy around. Now, once I make andesite casing, and I use JEI, which I highly recommend for Create, to figure out what else I can craft with andesite casing, I will then probably want to go and make a workshop like this. In a workshop like this, you can take iron nuggets and andesite, and you can actually craft some andesite alloy in it. And so if I leave this for a while and come back, it will have made all of the andesite and iron nuggets. So let me just grab this out of here. As you can see, it's already made 4 andesite and iron nuggets, which is very useful. So it can make lots of andesite alloy quickly. But if we notice something here, when I was crafting in the crafting table, I used 2 andesite and 2 iron nuggets in a checkerboard pattern, and it gave me 1 andesite alloy. But when I put it in the mixer, it used 1 andesite and 1 iron nugget and gave me 1 andesite alloy. So, not only does Create give you the power to automate things and make super cool contraptions, but it also can be much more efficient in certain areas of the game. So, once I make a factory like this, the first thing I'm going to want to craft is I'm going to take some gold ingots, and I'm going to put them on this depot here, and our mechanical press will crush them into golden sheets. I could even have multiple gold ingots, and it will automatically start pressing all of them into golden sheets. I'm then going to use those golden sheets and JEI to make engineer's goggles and a wrench. The engineer's goggles we'll get into a bit later, but we can use the wrench to rotate machines. So as you can see, I can rotate this mechanical press, and you can rotate all the machines, but there's no use in rotating certain things like walls. You can also shift and right click, and it will actually give you the create item you're looking at, and it works on all the create items, but it does not work on any regular vanilla items. So then I'm going to demonstrate how the engineer's goggles work. So if I grab a mechanical press and a mixer and some engineer's goggles. Put those on. We're going to head over here, and we could put a mechanical press right here. And as you can see, when we didn't have the engineer's goggles on, we're not getting any information. We don't know how fast this is rotating, and we also don't know how much power this press is getting. But if we put on the engineer's goggles, it's going to give us so much more information. So as we can see, the mechanical press is using 32 SUs, and we're actually making that power from a large water wheel with flowing water next to it. So we can then easily transport this power using a couple of shafts running into our mechanical press. Okay, and it's using 32 SUs. However, if I were to put a mechanical mixer on here, you can see it's not using any power. Sorry, I placed it in the wrong place. If I put a mixer right here, it is turning, but it says speed requirement. It appears that this mechanical mixer is not rotating with enough speed. And that's where one very important thing comes in. So, I could grab a stressometer, which is going to show me how many stress units I'm getting out of this network. So it's going to tell you how much power you have. And I can also grab a speedometer. This is going to tell me how fast this is moving. So if I just stick a stressometer on here, as you can see, it also brings power through it, very useful. And if I also put a speedometer on here, you can see we're making 512 SUs, which makes sense because we have one water wheel here, and it says it's making 512 SUs. We also have a speedometer here, and apparently our water wheel is turning at 4 RPM. But if we look at our mixer here, its connect stress impact is 4 times per RPM. Now, I'll get into this a little bit later, but why is our mechanical mixer not turning? Well, it's kind of obvious if you think about it, because if I were to take a rotation speed controller and attach it to this, let me just grab a large cogwheel. We can use it and put it on here, and what this rotation speed controller will do is it can make the speed coming out of it more or less. So I could put it all the way down to 1, super slow, or all the way up to 256. So right now this is not turning fast, so I just need to do some tricky maneuvering of... So if I just do some tricky maneuvering of the power with some gearboxes, just to get it so that it... Whoops. If I just do some tricky maneuvering with the gearboxes, one of these can actually be a shaft. So gearboxes will simply just output power in all 3 other directions. I can now hold right-click on this rotation speed controller and make it slower or faster. So now that it's at 64, we can actually see that the mixer does not say it's not working anymore. So now our mixer will actually mix things. So if we take a look, we can experiment with this to see how much speed. So even 16 is not enough for this. So if we just do some experimenting, let's try 32, and we can see that's enough. So I assume it's going to be 32, meaning it. Now, if you looked before with the engineer goggles, you saw that it wasn't using 128 SUs. But now that it has more speed, it's using more SUs. And that's because if we look at a machine, we can see that this mechanical mixer has a kinetic stress impact of 4 times the RPM. So, if we're putting 32 RPM in it, we multiply that times 4, and it is 128. So that way, you can calculate how much SUs, or how many SUs, a machine is going to use based on how fast it is. So, if I want this mechanical mixer to mix things faster and work faster, I can do that, but I can't make it go too fast, because if I do, then our large water wheel, which only makes 512 SUs, won't be able to keep up with the demand of the mechanical mixer. However, when you're just starting, you won't have a rotation speed controller to speed things up. So what can I do to get this mechanical mixer working with just a large water wheel? Well, if you know anything about cogs, you would actually know that I can have a large cogwheel and run it into a small cogwheel, and this small cogwheel has a little green, like, sparkly, and that shows that this cogwheel is actually moving faster because of a gear ratio. Because this gear is turning at, like 8 RPM, but it's bigger, so it's turning the smaller gear at 16 RPM. So, when you have 2 gears like this, attached diagonally, one will double the speed of the other. And if you run a small gear into a large gear, it will actually have the amount of RPM. So if I grab some andesite casing, useful trick here, you can actually encase things once they're attached to everything you want them attached to. That way you can do tricky things like this. Because if this was not encased, and we were to stick this on here, it won't stay on. And that's because if I were to put this on here, it would be rotating faster than this one here, and so it just wouldn't work. But if I put a casing, as you can see, it's covered up the shaft, and I can now do that. So now I'm hoping that that's going to be enough RPM, just using a couple of gears. So if I take a cogwheel and gearbox and a simple shaft, this is still not quite working. So let's just do one more round of this. We'll do that. Take a large cogwheel, small cogwheel. We need to maneuver this power around. So let me grab a non-vertical gearbox, put it here, and just simply move the power how we need to and connect it up. As you can see, the RPM we're getting from this, let me just take a speedometer and see how much that is. So as you can see, we need 32 RPM. That is the minimum using this method for getting our mixer to work. And so RPM and stress units is very important to know how they work. So water wheels like this are one of the 2 beginning game sources of power, and the other one is windmills. Windmills are also pretty simple. It's just they're kind of dependent on if you get wool or not. All you need to do, make a windmill bearing, put any old block on here, add a bunch of windmill sails, and then right-click the bearing to start it turning, and you will get some rotation out the back you can use. But but the windmills usually are on the slower side of the multiple power sources. There are also small water wheels, which you can also use. And one thing about small water wheels is they also actually turn faster. So if I just do some of this and rig up a small water wheel, as you can see, our network here is actually moving faster. And that's because whenever you have a network whenever you have a power source that moves slow connected to a power source that moves fast, it will become the speed of the faster one. So now this is moving at 64 RPM. And if I were to connect this up with a gearbox, because this is at 64 RPM, this is now using 256 SUs, like I talked about, and therefore will work faster. And that's the basics that you need to know for Create. That's all for today. Goodbye.